Hi everybody, it's Amy, also known as Aussie Stitcher in Texas, here on Flosstube and over on Instagram. I'm back with you today on Sunday, February 1st, 2026 with Flosstube update number 44. This is my January update. With a little bit of December thrown in. I do have some finishes from December that I didn't show because I didn't do a December update video. I did a whip parade instead. Now, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who's watched my whip parade, and hello to all of my new subscribers, but also thank you to my returning viewers and subscribers. Thank you everyone for continuing to watch over the couple of years now that I've been on here. Those of you who continue to watch, continue to comment, I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching me ramble for roughly 20 to 30 minutes once a month about the cross stitch that I've been doing. But let's jump into it. So for the month of January, I worked on 9 projects. One of 2 new starts for that. And then I had various monthly challenges, I suppose you could call. I have started to do Milestone Manor. I do Whip Go, both of those the brainchild of Jessie Marie does stuff. And then I have a couple of projects that I work on each month to have a specific goal of when I want to have those finished. But first off, let's start with the finishes that I finished in December. So these are 2 pieces I finished in the month of December while I was on vacation, actually. So first off is Primrose Cottage Stitches, the pirate Snowman number 9, which is the pirate. So this is all finished. Look how cute that is. So I stitched this on a 32 count lugana in the color Proserpina by Under the Sea Fabrics. It was one of her Fabric of the Month clubs. And I used all the called for with the exception of the jacket. So the jacket was called for in, I think, a week's dye works. And I used just a red that I had on stash from Color and Cotton called Strawberry. But that is all finished now. Can't tell you how much I love working on 32 count. I mean, it's just one of those, everyone I feel like has their comfort stitch or their comfort fabric. It might be a 40 count, it might be a 36, it might be aida, whatever it happens to be. For me, it is a 32 count lugana. I've worked on a couple of other counts and types and whatnot, and 32 count lugana is really it for me. I love working on it. My next finish is from Forbidden Fibre Co. It is the Baz Gaiath stitch along from a couple of years ago. This is all of the kit materials. So the fabric is a 28 count lugana in the color Feathertail, and then it's all of her flosses. So this was finished while I was also on vacation. The only thing I didn't do is, like in the letters where there's an I didn't do the French knot. I hate doing French knots. But everything else is as called for. This was tough to work on the edges just because this piece doesn't give you a lot of margin when you're working on it on the 28 count 2/2. But it was still fun to work on. So those are the December finishes. Let's get into the January, everything I stitched on in January. So for January, somehow, even with being away for like 5 days, I just got back from Cancun, I stitched 20,403 stitches. And I do think it's that mix of, I've got my Whip Go pieces that I have to do, I've got my monthly pieces that I have to do, and then the Milestone Manor situation, which I'm playing a little differently, and I'll explain when I get to that section. But let's start with the new starts. So my first one is Divine Beasts by NeeldeotDesigns. I don't have a printout of the kind of finished look, so I'll throw up a photo for you. I am stitching this on a 32 count lugana in the color Boreas by Under the Sea Fabrics. Let me wrangle this a little bit. And I am using all the called for colors it's a mix of DMC and CXC. So here is where I'm at. I decided for this because I only gave myself a 2-inch margin. I started it in a nudge hoop because I can get closer than you can get in a Q-snap. So I kind of worked a lot of the border, along all the way to the top and then all the way down this side and over so that I can get it in a Q-snap now, because I do prefer working in a Q-snap. The tension is much better than I can get in a nerd tube. So that's where we're up to. This got 2,648 stitches. And I absolutely love the colors. And I'm working on Pegasus right now. So that'll be fun to work on. Again, like I said earlier, the 32 count Lugana is my happy place. And I left its container over there. Okay, next up, another new start that I don't have a printout of, so I'll throw up what it looks like. I'm just calling this South Korea from VladaXStitch. It doesn't have a name on, like when you get the file, it's a bunch of random numbers and letters. So I'm just calling it South Korea. I am doing this on a 22 count heart hanger, 1/1. And here is what I got. So I only did 902 stitches on this. There we go. So it's very tiny. I'm a little worried by how tiny, but then when you kind of step back, it looks a little better. Like you can just see things more clearly. This was the piece I had taken with me on my travels, which I kind of debated because it was so small, but because it's 22 count and you're going 1/1, it's not like you're trying to count over a certain number. Like if I took a 40 count, 2/1. No, 1/2. I feel like that would be harder to work on than the 1/1 on the 22 count. But I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's my first time working on 22 count. It could be because, it's just a from Michaels or Hobby Lobby type of piece. It's very, very stiff, very rough, very, very difficult to get into the nerd tube and keep the tension, because that's another one I stayed close to the edges on, to be able to maximize my use of the fabric. So we shall, I don't know if I would use the 22 count again, at least that particular type. It's just too rough. Okay, next up is one of the 2 monthly pieces that I have. So I have 2 pieces that I work on for a specific amount of stitches in order to see a finish by the end of the year. One is an overall finish in 5 years and the other one is by the end of the year. So this is my one that I want to have finished within 5 years, which would mean a finish at the end of next year. And that is Alternative Reality by Josephine Wall. I stitch on this minimum of 2,000 stitches a month to see that finish by the end of 2027. So for this month, I worked on it for 2,149 stitches. So I went a little over because I was like right at the end of the piece. So I wanted to finish the row. I am working this typewriter method, kind of in the Royal Rose. So I go down 2, but all the way across. Here's what it looked like the last time that you saw it in, would have been my December update. So yeah, I do Royal Rose, but I am no longer parking. So I now have every parked thread stitched in. And let me move back a bit. Oh my goodness. Look how good that looks. So I am well over the 50% mark now. I think I'm pushing 60. And yes, like I said, I'm working all my parked threads in. I just didn't want to park anymore. Nothing against people who do park. It's just they were annoying me, and I do feel like I move a lot faster in getting those stitches in when I'm not parking, because I'm just going to work. I just work the thread until it's ended, finish it, move on to the next one, versus parking just for the sake of parking. Now, when I get into more confetti areas, that may or may not be able to do that. It could just depend on if I have the ability to finish the thread somewhere where I can anchor it. But yeah, I'm so happy with this piece. This is an 18 count Aida, 2/1, using all the called for DMC. And I'm going to leave this one out because I will work on it today to start its 2000 rotation. Okay, next up, my other monthly piece. So this is Long Dog Sampler's You Belong to Me. Here's what it will look like when it's finished. I am stitching this on a 40 count verdal in the color Gold Rush by BeStitchMe. And I am using 3842 as my color. Here's what it looked like the last time that you saw it. And here is where it's up to now. So this piece, to see the finish by the end of the year, I need to do 1,886 stitches. I did 1,881, so I fell just shy, but I didn't want to string up another thread to just get those 5 stitches when I'll pick it up next month. And this has also been called for Whip Go this month too. So it will get its 1886 plus the 500 that's called for in Whip Go. So I'll make up those 5 stitches this month. But yeah, very happy with this. I started this last year, I think it was last year or the year before, whatever year it was the 25th anniversary of when the Mummy, like the original Mummy, came out with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. So if you want to feel old, that made me feel old. Yeah, so a monthly piece, it will be finished by the end of the year. It's one thing I have held myself to these last couple of years when I've had these challenges for myself of doing this, of saying, okay, X amount per month, and I have been sticking to that and it has been working. My other Whip Go piece was Deadly Aquarium by Lola Crow. So that is what it will look like when it's finished. I am stitching this on a 32 count lugana in the color Neptune by Under the Sea Fabrics. Here's what it looked like the last time that you saw it. And here is what it looks like now. So I worked my way over. I did 2,044 stitches on this and some of the back stitch, which I'm not loving. So I did all of the around these, and I mean, it doesn't look bad. I just don't think it looks good enough for the pain in the A that it is, you know? So I'll finish the blue one, so just on that other side of the kind of pillar. I'll finish the back stitch on those because I feel like it would look weird if I didn't, but I'm not going to do it on the other ones because I just don't think it's not enhancing the piece enough for me to warrant the annoyance that back stitch is. So, but overall, I still love this piece. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. My goal is to put it in my office at my desk at work because, you know, aquariums are soothing. And I can't have a real aquarium because we're only there 2 days a week, so I don't want to subject fish to that. Okay, now let's move. Wait, was this my other? No, so that was my first, that was number 2 for Whip Go. Words are hard. My other Whip Go piece was Welcome to the North Pole by Primrose Cottage Stitches. So I worked on that. That was called for 1,000 stitches. So I did the 1,000 stitches. This is what it looked like the last time that you saw it. I actually ended up doing 2,544 stitches because it came out in my Milestone Manor situation as well, which I'll explain how that's working. But here is where we're up to. So I have completely finished these from like up to here. So this band is all done, that's all done, that's all done. I am using the DMC conversion for this. And this is one that I recharted from the paper pattern to put into some charting software so that it is fully, with the exception of the backstitch, Pattern Keeper compatible. So that is Whip Go. Whip Go done, monthly pieces done. Then I decided to start Milestone Manor, which is the brainchild of Jessie Marie Does Stuff. So the idea, if you have not already watched her video about it, go and watch. It's an amazingly fun game. But essentially you have a floor plan of a house or something different. Some people have created like a village or things like that. I've done a house. I've done my childhood house one of the houses that I grew up in, and I decided to do that one. You have a kind of like a hallway piece that you're working on, and then you have a whip per room that has a certain kind of health life, and the goal is to defeat those whips. I have changed it up a little in the way of my hallway piece. I have, instead of rolling the dice, which is what you do, you roll various dice to get your stitch count. So you roll the dice to say, okay, you're gonna work on this for 500 stitches or whatever it ends up being. My hallway piece, I'm not rolling the dice. I'm basically just doing 100 stitches on my hallway to be able to then move into the next piece. The reason I'm doing that is because my hallway piece, which I'll show, is Woodland Enchantress, forgive the glare please, by Dimensions. And this piece is hard for me to work on because it hurts my hand after a while. I'm doing it on a 16 count aida using the called for DMC. So sometimes that's 4 strands, sometimes that I'm not going up to 5, sometimes it's 3. When it's 2, it's fine. It's just like working normal, but 3 or more for any length of time really starts to hurt my hand. So I was like, well, I need to break up. I do want this piece. I really like it. I want it done. And I was like, I need to figure out a way to work on this consistently, but not for a long amount of time, so that I can get the progress without kind of it becoming a piece I hate because I end up hurting myself. So what I do is 100 stitches, so then I can move into each various rooms. I'll throw up what my my layout of my house is and the various projects that I have called so far. I also, to get the projects for the rooms, what I did was I printed out just little kind of photo cards of each of my pieces. I'll show you one now. Let's do that. So I printed out just little sides, and then on the back I wrote what the kind of quote unquote rules or whatever were for that piece. So for Welcome to the North Pole, it has 5 health. Each milestone for me on this piece is 5% increments, which is 697 stitches to finish a motif. So that would be like if I finished a snowman or the train or things like that. I'm not counting, like, this is very subjective to me. I'm not saying, oh, you finished a bird that's this big, that's a motif, that counts. No, to me, I'm counting something that's of significant size, or to zero out a color, because that's always fun in doing a piece. So if I hit any of those milestones while I'm working on the piece, that has a hit against the project. If I don't, that has a hit against me, and I take the health damage. So for Woodland Enchantress, that method is really working for me. So every time I step out into my hallway, I work on Woodland Enchantress for a minimum of 100 stitches. Sometimes I go over if I can finish out that thread, but for the kind of average is 100. So that allowed me in January to get 1,105 stitches on this piece that I was struggling to get in the almost year I've had this going. Because it was hurting my hands, it was a chore to bring out. Now it's not, because I'm like, I can do my 100, move on, and my hand hasn't started hurting by that point. So here's what Woodland Enchantress looked like before I started working on it this month. And here is what it looks like now. So I was kind of just like up here, and I've brought the tree down a lot, so I got a lot more in this tree and started moving over. I'm really just gonna leave this in the Q-snap until it's time to move it. Around here is also the bottom of that first page. So I ran over a little bit just to finish out my thread here, but this is primarily around here where the page ends. And I'm using all the called for material. I did change out the fabric just to still a 16 count, but I did an easy grid because I wanted more margin. You know, Dimension doesn't give you a ton of margin, and I wanted margin, so I just bought some 16 count. Easy guide. So yeah, this method is really working for me. I would recommend it to people who have a piece like this where you're like, oh, I want the finish, but I can't work on it for an extended period of time. Find a way to work it into a game. Is it a daily 10 minutes, daily 20 minutes, a daily specific stitch count, depending on if it's something where you can count the stitches. It's a great way to just chip away at a piece. Okay, I need to eat something, I'm getting indigestion. Next up for so the way my hallway piece is Woodland Enchantress. My first roll was, let's get myself situated here. To work on, I went into the sitting room and worked on, where are you? Star Dragon. So Star Dragon is by Owl Forest Embroidery. This is what it will look like when it's finished. It will, here's what it looked like the last time you saw it. I'm working this in a 40 count verdal in the color Macchiato by, come on, by BeStitchMe. I ended up doing, because what I was doing as well, because I don't like only getting a little amount of stitches, I was kind of going in and out of the room. So my first roll was only 600 stitches. So I did my 600, went out, worked on Woodland Enchantress came back in, and I did that 3 times because I wanted more. So my first roll was only 600 stitches, no milestone for that. Second roll was only 200 stitches. I did get a milestone for that, if only because the way the Owl Forest chart is in Pattern Keeper is it's kind of per page. So each color is multiplied by the amount of pages that that color is on. So you can zero out a color faster because it's on that specific page. So I'm counting that as a milestone because sometimes there can be 800 stitches of that color on that page, just with the way it falls. Oh, I didn't have this in the right order. So 600 stitches out, Woodland Enchantress. 200 stitches out, Woodland Enchantress. I was like, I want to get to at least 1,000. So I went back into that room, and of course I did a roll that was 1,800 stitches that I had to work on it. So I was like, fantastic. So this ended up getting 2,603 because I just finished the row. But I am trying very much to stick to what the rolls are telling me. So I'll throw up what it looked like the last time you saw it, but 2,603 stitches on this piece has now brought me here. So I came down the side. I'm starting to get a dragon come in. This is 40 count verdal, like I said. I am using the DMC conversion for this, except for the red. The red, I'm using Weeks Dye Works Raspberry. But this moves very fast because it's, it's like 4 colors in total. It does move very fast. So that last roll of the 1,800 stitches, I was like, why couldn't I roll that first? I almost considered like cheating because I was like, no one's gonna know but me. But I didn't. I did the 1,800 and that gave me another color zeroed out and another milestone. So the milestones for this piece are a page finish, which I did not get, finish a motif. Again, that is subjective to me. I didn't feel like in any of these pieces I finished a motif, so I didn't count that. I mean, I did finish a big rose, but it was only with a very short amount of stitches, so I was like, I'm not counting that. To do 2%, which is 662 stitches, so I got that on that last round, and 0 out of color. So this piece took 3 hits in this rotation. This will also come out next month because it got called for WIPGO for February. Next up, I went into my sister's, which was my sister's room, and that was Mythical Beasts. So that was the new start. I went in, I did that 3 times. So it was 260 stitches on the first roll, 660 stitches on the second roll, and 1,150 on the third roll. I got 2 milestones out of those 3 kind of rotations that I went in for that. And like I said earlier, ended up with 2,648 stitches. That I ended up working on a little bit more because it was like the end of the day. It didn't count towards Milestone Manor stitching as such, but it was like the end of the day and I just kind of wanted to finish out the day and not rotate in another piece. Next up, I went into my room, which is Persephone by Mirabilia. I'll throw up what it looked like the last time that you saw it. This, I only did 2 rotations. I did get 1 milestone out of it, out of the 2. Its rotations were for 1,200 stitches and then 460. This was another one I worked on a little bit longer, so ended up getting 2,498 stitches on it. And here's where we're at. This is a 32 count lugana in the color Briar Rose by Fabrics by Stephanie. And I am not doing the background. So all of that background I'm not doing. I'm just doing her. Because I do really like the fabric and I didn't want more of the fabric being covered up. This is another one I charted to get into Pattern Keeper. So that is worth its weight in gold and really does allow me to move a lot faster and have less errors than when I am working on a paper pattern. Oh, I'm dropping things. With the way my house worked, I also have to get to my parents' room, you had to go through the sitting room. So in one of the rotations for Star Dragon, I went into my parents' room to put some more stitches into Welcome to the North Pole. So that also got, I just did 1 rotation on that, which was 400 stitches, and I did 0 out 1 color. So that project took a hit and I didn't take a hit, so yay. So finally, I decided to work on not a Milestone Manor piece. There was just a piece that I wanted to work on. And that was Winter Moon by Plum Street Sampler. Here is the mock-up, not the mock-up, but like the pattern. I made a change. I'm not doing the bunny. I took the bunny out and just kind of like smoothed out the moon and just added in some more snowflakes to fill in some empty space. This I'm working on a 32 count, no, it's a 36 count linen in the color Ceres by Under the Sea Fabrics. Here's what it looked like the last time that you saw it. I am doing the DMC conversion on this, and I stitched, I didn't write it down. I think I got close to 2,000 on this. And forgive the hanging thread, I just have nowhere to anchor this yet. So that's where we got to. Got a lot more of the roof. This I was able to pump out some numbers because, you know, this is all black. I finished out this tree. I started the moon, which is just B5200 and ecru. I discovered I really hate snowflakes. I hate stitching snowflakes. I really dislike it. They look very pretty, but for some reason, I'm just like, no, I don't like it. So yeah, this got about 2,000 stitches. I forgot to write that one down on my list. But that is everything that I stitched on for January. I thank you, if all you're here for is the stitching, that is all the stitching that I did. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to all of my new viewers and subscribers. I really do appreciate it. For those of you who want to hear plans and see a little bit of haul from December, that again, I didn't show in December because I didn't do a December video, I'll be maybe another 5 minutes. So plans for February. Short month, but we do have President's Day in here, which is a nice long weekend. I have the two Whipco claws were number 5, number 22. That is Long Dog Sampler and Owl Forest. So Long Dog Sampler will get its monthly allocation of the 1886 plus 500, and then Owl Forest will get 2,000 stitches. So I probably won't use that for Milestone Manor this month because I have it for Whipco for a good chunk. I then will have Alternative Reality and obviously the Long Dog monthly goal. So those are the monthly set in stone. Then there's Milestone Manor, which lets me get that progress into Woodland Enchantress and obviously into other pieces. I don't know if I'm gonna open more rooms. I still have the garage, which is King of the Flowers by Luca S. That's in my like able to be opened rooms. So I will probably work on that. Divine Beasts, I'm having a lot of fun with. Persephone, because I do want to see her finished. And then I am thinking of starting a Bella Filipina. I have the 3 of the kind of Disney-ish series. So I have Jasmine, Belle, and Ariel. Ariel's my favorite, but I had started kitting up Jasmine. So I do have, I think it's Jasmine, the Krynic for Jasmine that's in the kind of like the border that she has. I have that, and Krynic is so hard to get your hands on right now and I very much like working top down, and that there's so much Krynic in those borders, and if you don't have it, it would just be so much empty space that I'd have to come back to. So I think I'll start working on Jasmine. If anyone saw the new release from Dren of Opal, I do really like that. Her arm is weird to me, so I probably would just not stitch that arm and make it like you've got then the illusion that the arm's in front of her and just unable to be seen. The fact she has no legs doesn't really bother me. The Disney princess ones don't have legs. Like, yes, it looks like they're in a, you know, like a window, so it makes sense that you can't see the legs, but so that doesn't bother me that she doesn't have legs. The only thing that stuck, the reason I like it is because I'm an October baby, so that's an opal. And normally for me, I've never loved when there's monthly like birthstone representative things. I've never loved the opal one, and I think it's just because opal's colors are not super vibrant when they are represented in stitching. You get fire opals that have so much color and are beautiful, but I've never found a pattern, not to say there's not one out there, I've never found one that's been just really grabbed my attention and been like, yes, I want to stitch that. This had a little bit more of that for me that I wanted to stitch, but it is a lot of white still. So I'm unsure if I will or if I won't. So that's a maybe. I have no other plans to start new things, but just, yeah, work on my monthly pieces and work on just getting progress in stuff. You know, I love seeing things finished and I love working on all my pieces. Who knows if I'll be able to get another 20,000 stitches this month? Probably not, because it's February, so there's less days in the month from here. So finally, let's look at the haul I got in December sometime. Forgive me as I lean over. Okay, so I have been buying for the last couple of, kind of the year, the kits from Forbidden Fibre Co. that represent the Court of Thorns and Roses, so the various courts. I really wanted the Night Court, let's not lie. That's the one I wanted, and that's the one that finally came out. So here is the bag that it comes with, and it's all sparkly. Love that. Here are the flosses that it came with. So it came with a bunch of flosses. So you've got Stormy Skies, which is a gray. Silver Bells, kind of a purpley, very light purple. Ooh. Inkwell. Full Moon. Frost, this one's pretty. Winter Wonderland, and Snowdrift, just a white. Yeah, that's basically pure white. So those are the threads it came with. The fabric it came with is Night Sky, and this I actually got the 16 count Aida in, because she didn't do I don't love 28 count, and the last couple I've bought have been 28 counts. The only 32 count she would do, I believe, was in linen, and I hate stitching on linen. I really don't like it. I don't like the slubs. I don't like the flimsiness of it, so I didn't want to buy the linen, but I was like, I'll try Aida. I've started stitching on Aida a little bit more, and I like it. And Aida's probably the fabric that dyes the best. So that is 16 count Aida in the color Night Sky. Here is, yes, okay, good. There's the needle minder it came with. And this is the pattern. Oh, I hit my hand. So that is the whole kit from Forbidden Fibre Co. for the Night Court. That's probably the last one I'm gonna buy. While I like the fun of getting these kits, I haven't loved all of the patterns. Like the floss, I've loved the floss, I've loved the bag, I've loved the fabric, that's all been great. So at least it's in that way, everything else can be repurposed. But the patterns just haven't been something that's drawn to me. I have them all, and you know, tastes change as you evolve as a stitcher, so who knows if that will change. And you might see them being stitched at some point. But that is everything for today. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Anyone who stuck around to the end. If you were in kind of North America in the last week, I hope you're safe. I hope you weathered your way through the storm. I did. I was very lucky we didn't lose power. One night, the fire alarms went off at like 5 in the morning, and when I woke up, we had no water. But that came back maybe an hour later. So thankfully, very lucky. I made it through, and then I left for Cancun on Monday. I did that harrowing drive from Fort Worth into DFW at a top speed of like 35 or 40 at max. And it was probably the scariest thing I've ever done. I made it safely though. I was like, let's not do anything stupid. If someone is going slow in front of me, then they're going slow in front of me, and I'm going slow too. If you want to pass me, you can pass me, because there's really only, whether they salted the roads or not, if they did, it didn't work. You know, we just had so much ice, and you know, it just was not a good situation. But you know, eventually from people driving, it kind of carves grooves into the snow so you can get down to the road. Well, I should say the ice, because we really got ice. We didn't really have snow. So you kind of, that's what you're driving on. And you can drive either side, but you're driving on snowy ice. So, you know, every now and then someone would overtake me and I'm like, you know what, that's your prerogative. But then every now and then your two little grooves disappeared for some reason. So then you're also kind of, oh God, slow down. And yeah, it was scary, but I did it. I made it. No accident along the way. Then proceeded to sit at the airport for about 10 hours because, you know, first flight canceled, second flight delay. Our pilots were stuck in like Kansas City, I think. So they weren't able to leave because of their weather, which sucked because whilst we had overall ice on the road, they had cleared the runways and it was sunny. So it was like, there was no problem with us leaving because of like snow or sleet or anything like that. We didn't have pilots and they couldn't find alternative pilots. So our crew just kind of sat on the plane. I sat in the lounge. Thankfully, I'd upgraded my ticket, so I had lounge access. So at least a comfortable place to sit. But that lounge was chaos because, you know, it's just delay, cancellation. You know, I think American Airlines had said it was like the worst weather event for them ever. They had the most canceled flights out of everybody. And then they proceeded to lose my bag. So that was fun. So I get to Cancun at, you know, 9 o'clock at night. Should have been there at like 11 o'clock in the morning. No bag. It's, you know, there's no one working back. There's no more flights coming in. So it's too late to get my bag that day. They're like, oh, it's still in Dallas. We'll get it on, you know, the first flight out tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, you know, these things happen. There's no point getting mad. There's nothing that poor person at Cancun airport can do for me other than tell me where the bag is. But I was like, okay, well, if I get it tomorrow, I get it tomorrow. That's the way it is. But then the next day comes and a colleague of mine, her bag had also been left behind and her tracking is showing the flight that it's on and it's coming in that day. Of course, that flight's being delayed, but at least it's on a plane. Mine is showing none of that. Of course, there's no one at the airline that you can talk to. I'd get on the phone, I'd sit on hold for 2 hours. At the 2 hour mark, the phone would just hang up. So I'm trying to talk to somebody on the chat function because at least that kind of keeps your place in line. They're telling me when I finally get through, yep, your bag is on flight ABC. And I'm like, well, my tracking software is not showing that. And it's like, well, the person's like, well, when the plane takes off, that's when you'll see the tracking update. And I'm like, but that's not what's happening for my colleague whose bag's on a different flight. Can you just find my bag, put my bag on her flight? No, we can't do that. The tracking will update. And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. Sure enough, my bag was not on that flight. Wasn't on any flight that day. So I'm now 2 days with no stuff. I'm at a work event. I'm not in Cancun for fun. I'm at work. You know, I'm supposed to be doing things which I'm not doing because I'm not dressed appropriately. You know, I'm washing clothing in a sink and, you know, it's buying stuff at the boutique and I'm in a 5-star hotel. So it's not inexpensive things there. I think the deodorant I bought was like $15. You know, it's ridiculous. Next day, finally see the tracking update and my bag is on a flight, of course, with a couple of delays. Again, I miss some things because of work and I don't have the proper clothing. I've got no makeup, like everyone's seeing me fresh-faced and I mean, it's so embarrassing. But thankfully, I've got the type of company that everyone's very understanding in that regard. But yeah, so my bag's on a flight. Of course, that's getting delayed. Finally made it though. I got my bag at like 9 o'clock, 2 days later, and it was the best feeling in the world. I will never take for granted. And I will, you know, I've been very lucky in the amount of travel that I've done. My bag's been lost twice in hundreds of trips that I have done. So I'm very lucky that it is not a regular thing, but I'm definitely going to start, you know, carrying a couple things, make sure I've got a couple of things with me when I'm, you know, carrying on just in case that happens again. So I don't have to deal with that stress. But, you know, sorry to go into that rambling for everybody. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope where you are, it is warming up. And that we're through this weather event that we had. Thankfully here in Fort Worth, we're not meant to get below freezing again in the foreseeable future. So that is great. But have a great month ahead. Have a great week ahead. Thank you for watching. Bye.